Welcome to Psychic Frank's Mystery School. As it says right there. Yeah, I've got readers now. I'm getting new glasses, but the funding is taking a little longer than I thought. So I'm doing a lot of reading, and these work. So it's wonderful to be here, and thanks for taking some 52 minutes out of your busy life to tune into what's going on astrologically speaking. This July now is the most important astrological year of the whole year, the planetary activity. I'm going to explain all that. Before I do, there's this, and especially in relationship to Donald Trump's Saturn-Venus conjunction in Mercury. I was just looking at Venus, Mercury, the United States of America was born with Venus, Mercury rather, 24 degrees Cancer, and his, excuse me, his Saturn-Venus conjunction is 25 degrees. So that's an innate ability to just tune in on what the masses are doing, good or bad, as long as the bottom line is Donald Trump there. So before we get into, so this is this Capricorn new moon is in opposition to all that. And Pluto, too. Not only, that's why we're going to get to that. There's three big events happening. The first eclipse, partial on July 12th, exactly opposite to Pluto. 2020. I mean, Capricorn, Cancer. Okay, this book is called The Karma of Questions. Because during July, with all this water happening, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, Neptune retrograde in Pisces, emotions and sensitivity are going to run really high. And then with Mars about to conjunct the moon and the south node in Aquarius come July 27th, very volatile, because that will put again, Pluto on the 27th, Mars conjunct the moon, 4 degrees Aquarius, in opposition to the sun, 4 degrees Leo. So that's very volatile, especially because what's going to be going on over this on the 12th with this very powerful eclipse. Mercury also goes retrograde. So while emotions are running really intensely, use them. You don't use these emotions at the lower octave. Make skillful choices on how you're going to rally through this. Like you put an almost dead tulip in a bottle and a glass of water, and all of a sudden, a half an hour later, you turn around and it's all rallied up, So be like, we're all probably wilted tulips by now, after 17 years of war. We're war weary, subconsciously or consciously. Okay, Buddha wasn't, so that's why I want to read a few paragraphs from this book. It's called The Karma of Questions. And so the Buddha wasn't the sort of teacher who simply answered questions. He also taught which questions to ask. He understood the power of questions. They give shape to the holes in your knowledge and force that shape, valid or not, into the answers you hope will fill up those holes. Even if you use right information to answer a wrong question, it can take on the wrong shape. If you then use that answer as a tool, you're sure to apply it to the wrong situations and end up with the wrong results. Follow me through here. I don't mean to mix up your mind there. That's why Buddha was careful to map out a science of questions, showing which questions in what order lead to freedom and which ones don't. At the same time, he gave his talks in a question and answer format to make perfectly clear the shape of the questions he was answering. So I realized too, after doing readings close to 40 years, definitely over 34 years, 35 years, a lot, and not a lot, but a dozen times a year, and occasionally you could tell somebody's done some serious inner work on themselves, and that's always a joy. I like working with everybody at all stages of development. And they'll ask me this very interesting question about, will I take my true self? Is this my true self, my personality? Will I take this with me, or because I talk about non-attachment a lot. And it says here, Buddha, and the case in point is the teaching of the non-self. Many students interpret this as the Buddha's answer to two of the most frequently asked questions in the history of serious thought. Who am I, and do I have a true self? And you know, and one of the students said, point blank now, see or no, yes or no, do I have a true self? And point blank, is there a self? He refused to answer on the grounds that either a yes or a no to the question would lead to extreme forms of wrong view that block the path to awakening. Yes or a qualified no would lead to attachment. You'd keep clinging to a sense of self, however you defined it. And remember, your ego is in this life is basically comes by the way you were upbringing. The first 3 years of your life, the clay was formed. It was baked. That's why I tell parents, you're breaking that kid. At the first 3 years, you're telling the whole universe, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And people, it's hard to be yourself, you know, unless you don't fit into this. We're not going to get into that. An unqualified no would lead to a bewilderment and alienation, for you'd feel that your innermost sense of intrinsic worth had been denied. As for the question, who am I, the Buddha included in a list of dead-end questions that lead to, quote unquote, a thicket of views, a wilderness of views, of contortion, a withering, a frittering of views, bound by a fritter of views, you, in parentheses, don't gain freedom from birth, aging, and death, from sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, or despair. In other words, any attempt to answer either of these questions is unskillful karma, blocking the path to true freedom. So instead of wasting our precious energy allowance, I'll repeat it again, it's so valuable. I learned it at great expense, physically, financially, emotionally. Most of the best teachers, actually all of the best teachers I've had, I didn't get along with. We argued, or there was just this total chemistry that was like, ah! I always laughed it off in hindsight, saying, well, you can't put two big cats in the same cage. That's how it was with Carolyn Neese and me. When we met, it was an instant, like, you know, we didn't like each other. And but I learned from her, and she taught me about energy allowance. Excuse me. And in 2 seconds, what it's all about is you get like $100, $200, like when you play Monopoly. When you pass go, you get $200. Yeah, you get like 100, so much energy every morning just for waking up. But most people like piddle that away, wondering about, instead of waking up with gratitude and affirming life is full of unexpected, wonderful surprises, and, you know, decide to have a closer walk with thee. And instead they wake up, oh God, you know, another day in hell, yada, yada, yada. You know, if the right one don't get you, the left one will. You know, that kind of attitude. And then, you know, what if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't go right? What if I missed it? What if my ride isn't there and I'll never make that appointment? You know, that's $30, $30. By the time that person puts one foot on the floor in the morning, they've piddled away that $100, $200 allowance, and they're working on energy allowance, you know, talking about, well, who's zooming whom, is this person I'm involved with, cheating, you know, all, you know, letting that mind go in that hamster wheel of round, 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 that wheel of Dharma, you know, until you finally start waking up and start being very frugal. You wouldn't run around the streets throwing money in the air. Well, be very frugal with your energy allowance. Is that story worth $30 of my energy allowance? See, that's when people get really sick. That's when cancer and all these horrible diseases fall. I don't want to judge them as horrible, but that's when diseases, you know, they are pretty nasty, fall in, is when we we allow ourselves to not use our imagination. It takes a schooled imagination. I just lost that whole train of thought. Okay, so being we have a Cancer Solar Eclipse, Mars is still in Aquarius. It's going to be there more or less. It goes back into Capricorn for a few weeks, starting next month. Well, it is retrograde now. Mars goes retrograde next month, Mars is retrograde 9 degrees Aquarius. Right now, it's retrograde. Today's the 5th. 8 degrees. 8 degrees Aquarius. It goes down to like 28 degrees Capricorn. It backs up into Capricorn, and then I think September we get back into Mars will be back in Aquarius. Yeah, Mars backs up on the 12th of August, 29 Capricorn, and then the 28th of August it goes direct 28 Capricorn, and then Mars goes back in Aquarius on the 11th of September until the 15th of November, when Mars will leave Aquarius after 6 months and enter Pisces, sensitive Pisces, and join Neptune where it hasn't been for 2 years. Okay, so Mars squares are they're rough, but they're windows of opportunity. There's big gifts there. So Mars is how you energize things, and it's very rare to have Mars spending 6 months more or less in Aquarius, and it's still squaring Uranus in Taurus. So look for like 4 degrees, low numbers in your chart. I believe not only air signs but anything in your chart, any angle, anything, any house cusp, if you got 4 degrees going on anywhere, you'll be feeling this. This is incredibly powerful, because this new moon, 20 degrees on the 12th here on the Pacific coast, it's 7:47 p.m. So it's the early evening of July 12th. That's a Thursday. I'll be here the following Thursday, the 19th. And by the way, stick around after my show for a few minutes. I end at 52 minutes to the after the hour. And Denise Story shows up at 6 for her show, Liberal Buzz, which I'm a member of Access of Love. And it's really, you want to be up on what's going on with alternative healings, a.k.a. cannabis, and how we're working on getting a seat at the table to make these rules. But so it's worth seeing. Okay, an eclipse brings to light what's been hidden. In the house activated by the eclipse shows where truth will be revealed through our feelings and intuition. See, so 20 degrees Cancer points to areas of life that don't serve your highest good and are ready to be released. And because this is happening in Donald Trump's 5th house in opposition to his Saturn, 23 degrees, and his Venus, 25 degrees Cancer. So that's a big deal. I believe amplifying the transformational potential and emotional charge of this lunation, the sun and moon precisely oppose Pluto. I'm reading Emily Trinkus here in the Mountain Astrologer for June and July. Yeah, I've been following her for a decade. I'm so glad she's got, she's a regular member of the Mountain Astrologer now. Underworld Pluto reveals our shadows, and its interaction with this Cancer eclipse brings awareness to distortions and dysfunctions in family dynamics, in intimate relationships, collectively and individually. It's time to realize we're all part of the same, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. We're in this love together. I want to read what Stephen Arroyo says. This is called Astrology, Karma, and Transformation, about Pluto. Being Pluto's, you got to keep your margins permeable and wake up saying, okay, it's a good day to be, to transform. Yeah. Okay, so what it says here is Pluto's, we can there, okay, another way of putting it is that we are most intensely meeting our karma, Pluto. It says Pluto's house position also indicates the area of life in which the individual may feel isolated and lonely. For this area, the person prefers to remain buried in his or her own interest. Pluto in the individual chart thus reveals what work we have to do at a deep level. When I say individual, it's also collectively. So we're being told now, because we're coming up to our Pluto return that happens every 247 years. We've never had a Pluto return. Our democracy is fledgling. When you think of other democracies in history that lasted thousands of years, and many that were erased, that we have no trace of through, I guess, catastrophic or natural occurrences. So it says Pluto in the we're going through big changes, and actually America's chart, we got Pluto in the money house. So yes, paradigms are changing. The reason Pluto is often said to represent a higher octave of Mars is not only that both are extremely powerful and assertive influences, but also that both planets reveal in any particular chart specification direction that this energy would take. Whereas Mars represents the energy we have to do work in the world, Pluto represents the energy necessary to do work in the underworld at the deeper levels of each person's psychic structure. Yeah, this is not cosmetic surgery. This is paradigm changes. So as I said, most civilizations laugh at us. We're just little under, was it 200 and something years old? Fear has two meanings, as forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. I like that. False evidence appearing real. The ego is impatient because it knows its time is limited. The spirit is patient because it knows it's eternal. You know, it's better to die for something than to live for nothing, huh? Well, that's my motto. You got to be fearless, you know. You got to really up your game and your sincerity now. Nothing short than, if you love your family, and if you have any family members who suffered during any of the wars, any kind of a loss of discomfort, which were millions and millions, how could you not be outraged by what's going on now? We have a Russian operative and many of the cohorts these are more than just swamp creatures. These are people who are hell-bent in destroying all of our institutions. Granted, they're not perfect. We're we're in order to make a more perfect union, but this president, as I said, it's important not to eat the menu instead of the meal, and understand that if Donald Trump didn't exist, we would have to invent him, because like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, let no man pull you so low as to hate him. No, I just feel, I can't stand the man's voice, but I read Comey's book. I'm halfway through it. James Comey. It's a good book. Actually, it's a real easy read. And each chapter, most books these last couple of decades came out with, every chapter's got like a pithy quote on top. And he has one by Benjamin Disraeli on chapter 3 is The Bully. It's one of my favorite chapters in the book. Yeah, Comey was actually the prosecutor for many of the big mob families on the East Coast. Gotti and all that, he was all part of that, He's used to dealing with Donald Trump mobster type, because Donald Trump's a wannabe mobster, He says, Benjamin Disraeli said, courage is fire and bullying is smoke. And Thomas Jefferson said, he who permits himself to tell a lie once finds it much easier to do it a second and a third time, till at length it becomes habitual. He tells lies without attending to it, and truth without the world's believing him. This falsehood of a tongue leads to that of the heart, and in time depraves all its good dispositions. And there's one great one by Mark Twain that said, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And then my favorite of all people is Dwight D. Eisenhower. I literally remember being a young little rugrat sitting in the backyard on a summer day underneath the grapevines with my Italian adopted grandfather, who is the saving grace in my life. Anything good in me, that man, rest his soul, put in there. And he'd be making spoons for my grandmother. They had a great love affair. And he'd be sitting on a hot day with his stinky Italian cigars and a glass of wine, whittling these spoons. And he would tell me about how much he liked Ike. And he never really mastered English. And it was always fun to get him to say words like Eisenhower or Washington, because his broken English, and then we'd laugh at him, But he was a great guy. I feel him. I found, he told me all about birds. That's why I think I'm so into birds this lifetime. Yeah, he was. Everybody's got some shine and light in their life. If not, find one. I was blessed. He said, Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "The supreme quality for leadership is unquestionably," excuse my, it's the roll of the tongue, unquestionably integrity, period. Without it, no real success is possible, whether it is on a section gang, a football field, or an army, or in an office. And Herman Hesse actually said, I've always believed, and I still believe, that whatever good or bad fortune may come our way, we can always give it meaning and transform it into something of value. Yeah, I'm really enjoying James Comey's book. I like to read stuff like that very slowly. I don't like to rush through it, because I waited months for it. I was number 400 in the public library here in San Francisco. They have a wonderful service that helps us get any books we want. Even the Pope says weapons manufacturers can't call themselves Christian in Turin, Italy. Francis issued his toughest condemnation to date of the weapons industry at a rally. Why aren't the youth of America at the weapons industries, camping out in front of these manufacturers? That's what Carl Jung said, this ability we have to turn, we all wouldn't kill an animal ourselves if we had to eat. Well, I would hope not. We couldn't look into a beautiful cow's eyes and slaughter it. I mean, it takes there was a time in Britain where butchers couldn't be on a jury because they were deemed morally unfit. I'm not making that up, and I'm not bashing butchers or meat eaters. I'm just telling the facts. That's a fact, Jack. Yeah, it does, think about it. And as I said, nowadays, unless you buy, Whole Foods meat, most of the meat is slowly but surely coming around. Oh my God, we don't, I don't want to get started. I don't want to be a preacher there. It took me a long time. I kept on trying to be, dairy was the roughest thing to give up. And that was that was the most, today I feel healthy. I think that's a big part of it, because I don't do any dairy, because I think there's capsaicin in milk, and it's a carcinogen, and yet the milk industry is thriving there. Do some research. You don't have to go to the library these days and spend hours with the card catalog looking up all this hard information. Just Google things up, and boom, all this information comes out. So we're still dealing with the Mars, Aquarius, Uranus, and Taurus stirring things up, energizing in the dynamic of, the energizing dynamic of compassion. We underlook the act of compassion. we think it's a privilege to, it's a privilege to be able to give. It's not an obligation to give. It's a privilege to be able to share whatever we have with people that don't have. When you get, give. When you learn, teach. Engaging, yeah, it's all about engaging now. Get with your friends and use this summer now to use that Mars energy. Yeah, because the Pluto exact opposition to the Sun Moon is likely to bring up things that need to be healed in your own subconscious, in your own consciousness, and in the collective consciousness. Lots of water circulating, very vulnerable now. People are going to be very vulnerable because, you know, the truth is, I think Muller's going to come out with something. I believe that's happening very, very fast. So what else did I write here? Okay, yeah. So this Cancer eclipse, the Cancer new moon solar eclipse, that's on the 12th. I said at 7:48 p.m. And what makes this one totally dynamic is it's got an opposition to Pluto, exactly 20 degrees. Pluto, 20 degrees retrograde Capricorn. Look for that on your chart, and look for 20 degrees Cancer. And on the United States of America, all this is happening. Our Mercury is 24 degrees Cancer. So that's why Mercury in America, we're at the edge of what everybody in the world wants. Yeah, we know what's going on. Cancer is very intuitively just knows how to fit in, how to evolve. You know, once again, for good or for bad, depending on if it's a healthy trend or not. Be very mindful that the mid-month, pay attention to how you need to be emotionally nurtured and nurtured. Nurtured and nurtured. I wrote nurtured twice, so I guess it's important. Most people feel like I have to nurture people. I want to buy the world a Coke. I like that saying, but I don't like the substance Coke, you know. But you know what I mean? I want to like, you know, I want to do everything nice for people. But first of all, you have to be good to yourself, because a lot of stuff will be coming up. Pluto always, like Carl Jung said, and Pluto acts that way, there could be no movement without emotional pain. So I think a lot of people will be betrayed. Yeah, Barack Obama was, you know, great guy and all that, but let's face it, let's not try to whitewash what went on. The first 6 months of his presidency, he could have done some dynamic things, but he got that Geithner character in there, a Wall Street bank insider, to, you know, throw us all under the bus. The working class under the bus. And then he thought he was going to buddy up, being center right, you know, he was going to have Congress embrace him. Instead, they gave him 8 years of nothing but obstruction. So let's face it, he was so green you could have planted him. I'm sure now he's probably still won't admit it. He's a Leo, you know, so he probably still won't admit that he totally, that first 6 months, I don't know what made him do. Well, you see those early pictures of Barack Obama, he had a beautiful head of hair, not a gray hair in there. 8 years later, he's practically total gray hair there. So I'm sure in his inner thoughts, regrets you know, what those first 6 months. He had both houses. He could have done some fantastic things for the, if he had been a little more to the left instead of in the banks, you know, and that's what Geithner was. How quickly we forget Geithner, that creep, you know. All these people make their money. Take the money and run. Remember Tell's song, take the money and run. Jung said, only a life in a certain spirit is worth living. It is a remarkable fact that a life lived entirely from the ego is dull, not only for the person himself, but for all concerned. That's from a 1926 lecture called Spirit and Life by Dr. Jung. The structure and dynamics of the psyche. Yeah, page 645. When the ego has been made a seat, quote unquote, of anxiety, someone is running away from himself and will not admit it. So usually I tell people, people that are constantly looking for a fight, run away from these people because the battle they're fighting is with themselves. Well, how could you fight? How could you run away from the President of the United States who's hell-bent? He said he was going to destroy every institution, and that's exactly what he's doing. The environment is suffering. The head of the EPA is just totally, well, they got a new one now. They'll get a new one in to finish it up. So it's all about being mindful now. Like I was saying, don't waste your energy allowance asking questions that are not skillful questions. Ask, how can I be part of the solution here? How can I stay positive? Yeah, cynicism, Norman Cousins said, cynicism is intellectual treason. So let's keep our, well, everything is stirred up now. We got this Pluto on the 12th in opposition to the sun and moon is likely to bring up a lot of stuff. And then Mercury, 2 days later, Jupiter goes direct, 9 degrees Scorpio. That's going to release a lot of emotional energy too. Eclipses on July 27th, conjunct Mars. Talk about volatile. This like potential for real violence there. I'm talking like, you know, not dancing in the street, but, you know, Mercury the day before it goes retrograde in Leo. And let's see what else we get. It's really, this total lunar eclipse on the 27th of July is preceded by Mercury going retrograde just the day before, 23 Leo. Objectivity and humanitarianism, getting away from ego and connecting to the whole. I think, once again, what's been going on is something from like, I get so excited I start stuttering. But if some European or third world South American country was doing this, what we're doing, we'd be at war. And yet we have an administration, somehow this man has taken over, and his cronies there are, yeah, so it says it's all about getting away from the ego and connecting with the whole. It's us versus the ego and personal confidence level. Remember, right action. You know, I've got some quotes I didn't get around to doing last time. It says, thanks. Think of giving not as a duty, but as a privilege. Wisdom begins in wonder. We live in this world now where people just don't have any wonder in nature. The way we just pull up trees, you know, hey, taking up valuable real estate, you know, this, what the city's been doing with Ed Lee, and it doesn't seem to be stopping, is it's a nightmare for the city. They could be we could be known as a pet-friendly, ecologically forward city, but instead we've got money, 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 money. For myself, I am an optimist. It does not seem to be much use in anything else. Winston Churchill, Sir Winston Churchill said that. Abraham Lincoln said, I have always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice. Okay, I read that last time I was here. Okay, Mercury retrograde is an opportunity to re-evaluate ego issues. So Mercury goes retrograde on the 25th, Wednesday the 25th. We'll talk. I'll be here on 2 weeks from now. I'll be back here on the 19th of July. And I'll update you, I'll refresh your memory then. Remember, when a planet goes retrograde, the gifts of that planet, and this planet, Mercury, is the planet of information, outward communications are askew, and inward communications, like the magnifying glass gets turned around, and inward communication is illuminated. So it's time to release from the effect and get to the cause level and do some moving and lifting. And with Mars now in Aquarius is all about truth, justice, and the American way. And I'm not talking Donald Trump's America, aka Nazism, Trumpistan. He's the Trumpatola. It's so easy to hate him, but yet I know it's a trap, and I will not let myself throw 70 years. I'll be close to 70 years down the tube on this jerk. And I grew up with the Donald Trumps in New York in the 60s. He's only 2 years older than me. Energy from the second half of July will extend to the end of August. Be mindful of what's going on in your life. Skillful mindfulness. You know, ask yourself, what is the results of this? How involved is my ego? Why am I doing this? Why am I not doing this? What's keeping me from, I say I love my kids. Why am I not, I'm not talking about give your money to some corporation and walk around. This is the corporations that are creating cancer. It's the corporations that need to be, especially now with the EPA poisoning our streams. They're just starting. Yeah, immediately there's a financial gain because, the corporations can make lots of money now. They don't have to worry about the environment. But this is just this is not, a majority of Americans are on the right page. That's why it's not enough to say, well, I'm going to vote, we live in California here. Who knows if you're watching this on YouTube, you might be in Australia watching this. But it's time to really get out there and get involved. And don't bond with wounds, please. No good could come from bonding with wounds. This total lunar eclipse is teaching us how to be objective, urgency, importance requiring swift action. So there'll be some event come, and then that's July 27th, 4 degrees Aquarius. That's when the sun will be in Leo conjunct the north node in Leo, and the south node will be 5 degrees Aquarius, the moon will be 4 degrees Aquarius, and Mars will be 3 degrees. So having the Mars conjunct the moon on Aquarius lunar eclipse, look for 4 degrees, like I said when I started this show today. Any aspect of 4 degrees is going to be either some aspect will be happening to it. Either it'll be a window of opportunity or a sextile, a flow, or some kind of a nice, or maybe not so nice, but the end results will be nice. So use that energy collectively now and get involved. Be mindful of what's going on in your life. I said that 3 times, but it's so important. I mean, to be alive now. I live in the city, of course, and it's just the other day I was waiting for a ride, and I looked down, and there were just like literally 50 cigarette butts, from the curb to the creek. If you want to kill yourself with cigarettes and, whatever, it's a nasty habit. At least don't kill us all. Don't kill innocent fish, and don't poison our creek. At least, throw them away. So many people just are not conscious, not mindful of what's going on. Actually, I brought something here about mindfulness. I'm not going to gross you out by reading the whole thing. It's from Soro Das, and it's the mirror of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the root of Dharma. Lack of mindfulness is the body of practice. Mindfulness is the fortress of the mind. Without mindfulness and presence of mind, lack of mindfulness is the creator of evil deeds. Without mindfulness, you will be swept away by laziness. Nothing can be accomplished. Lack of mindfulness piles up poops. Without mindfulness, you sleep in an ocean of urine. Without mindfulness, you are like a heartless zombie, a walking corpse. Our teacher wished to remind us that without the vital heart of awareness practice, mere form and ritual is meaningless. Without mindfulness, staying in a monastic retreat would accumulate few spiritual rewards. All we would have to show for our time would be piles of excrement. All the hours of meditating would lose much of its deeper value unless we were mindful while doing it. Practicing mindful awareness is how we developed insight and self-realization. The same thing is true outside of a monastery walls, whether we are meditating or washing our laundry. The more fully engaged in simply doing what we are doing, and the more awareness and insight we bring to bear upon it, the more we get done, spiritually speaking. My parrot is a real big part of my spiritual life. We've been together 23 years, just about. And when I'm on the floor picking up garbage that she's thrown on the floor for me to pick up, I'm really into it. I can't tell you the joy I get. You don't have to go to a gym if you have pets. Or anyway, when you're mindful about get into a bird's head, you know. I have a sign on my door near the doorknob that said, "Find a decent animal and love it." Yeah, for a lot of people, they're not meant to have animals, so I don't want everybody to get an animal. Some animals be better off if you don't get them. But, you know, if you think it's time in your life to make a big commitment, you know, animals are a big, big commitment. Yeah, there'll be something coming up around this... these lunations. And then in August, we get the third lunation. We get the third eclipse, the new moon, 18 degrees Leo. So a lot of the boomers will be, oppositions will be awarenesses. And we'll talk more about that long before that comes along. Be very mindful of the mid-month. Pay attention to how, because something's, there'll be, I believe it might even be Pluto, Robert Mueller's conclusion or something thereof. Because all of this action now, and actually in July there, we're going to have, like I just said, the 18-degree new moon in Leo. Donald Trump's Mars is 26 degrees, and his rising sign is 29 Leo. Yeah, hearts don't attack us and nerves don't break down, but boy, we do a number on them. Remember, hearts open only within. Listen to your heart. Like Donald Trump trying to put guns in schools, trying to harden schools. That was the word they used. Harden schools, like his hard heart. You know, hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah. Oh, you got hard-hearted. Yeah, very key on. In July, we have two very powerful eclipses. And Mercury going retrograde taking place on July 12th, the new moon in Cancer, exact Pluto, just refreshing, recapping. A real awareness now of something totally hideous and ugly. It's never pleasant, but there's a big gift there. We're going to be a lot of vulnerable people out there, so it's important. Don't give in to pessimism. Oh, I wrote something on the back here. Yeah, Donald Trump is just at this point, never mind, he's single-handedly destroying every institution in our precious fledgling democracy, but he's getting great joy out of it. But he's tedious, he's boring, he's so boring. Okay, we have 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. Okay, we've got around 10 minutes left here if you want to call. 415-861-6648. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, the Aquarius lunar eclipse on July 22nd. Lunar eclipse is precisely aligned, supercharged full moon. The Earth's shadow falls between the sun and moon, and what is typically the brightest night of the month is veiled in darkness. As the light goes out, what's hidden in the subconscious rises up. Our shadows, secrets, feelings that seem too big or scary, demanding attention and expression. Yes, secrets will be revealed, good secrets and ugly secrets. If I was Donald Trump, I'd get a facelift and change my name and color and move to a different light, move to a different country. Yeah. Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, squares the sun and moon. Mars, yeah, we'll talk more about that. I'll be here before July 27th. I want us all to focus on what's happening. Most people will see this show will be 7:30 on Saturday. This month it'll be the Saturday the 14th. Bastille Day, July 14th. All right, let's get out there and eat some fresh bread. Yeah, eclipses bring to light what's been hidden. Amplifying the transformational potential is this Pluto, precisely in exact opposition to Pluto. The sun and moon in opposition to Pluto. And this all happens on Donald Trump's 11th house. Saturn, yeah, Mercury with Pluto, and a big planet of transformation and rebirth in opposition to Saturn. He has to have all of anybody that's happening to you. You have to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and you know he don't. You know, he just doesn't have that. The underworld reveals, yeah, the shadows. And then remember now, with all this Cancer emotions, this is the most intensely emotional month just starting now. So learn now how to be skillful and don't be falling for these emotional traps or these chances to be violent. I believe there might be some looting in the streets. Because you know, Don, I've said this many times, Donald Trump isn't going to take the high road like Richard Nixon and walk out on the White House lawn some full moon night and wave goodbye as he hops on a helicopter and goes off to China to be pardoned by Ford. I don't believe that happened. No, this man's going to have to be taken out. You know, they're going to have the military drag him and a lot of his cohorts out of there. That's what I'm feeling. So I believe whether it actually happens in July, something's going to hit the fan. IT is going to hit the fan. The Cancer eclipse trines both Jupiter in Scorpio and Neptune in Pisces, a potent activation of 3 water signs that points to a higher potential of this lunation. See, water will wear things down. That's how water gets their way. They just don't give up, and the sharp cliff becomes a round, soft little ledge by constantly water running away at it. So if you're a water sign, Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, look back at your life and how you got where you are is probably your ability to never give up. Be relentless in your never wearing it down. Yeah, so with now, we have 3 things, Jupiter in Scorpio, Neptune, higher consciousness in Pisces, a potent activation of 3 water signs that points to the higher potential of this lunation. The addition of cardinal Cancer to the ongoing Jupiter trine brings a boost of initiative to take charge and harness the power of imagination. Get to the helm of that ship. And I get a lot of calls from legitimate poll takers, from Nationwide, from respected news sources. And I don't care how respected they are, I'm not going to do a poll. I will not be in Facebook. I will not do polls. Yeah. So Saturn in Capricorn is all about agriculture. That's what's being under attack now, by the way. Invites us to nurture and care for ourselves in ways that increase our internal feelings. Yeah, so don't judge be good to yourselves. You know, most people, their inner voices are all about name calling and all that stuff. So all this lunation happens all about our sun that we just had on June 27th, the Cancer new moon on our sun, whether we are conscious of that. See, the planets don't make things happen. They simply reflect what's going on. Okay, so that's the heads up now. Today is Thursday the 5th. This show will be seen actually on the 7th. It's early in the month. The month just started. Yeah, it used to be the second and the fourth Thursday, and then a slot opened up the first and the third. But Richard Rance is still on the second and the fourth Thursday. Wednesdays at 5. Denise Dory. Check out SF Commons TV, SF Commons TV on the computer, and go to the schedule for channel 76 and 29. Comcast doesn't tag our shows anymore. They stopped around 9 years ago, and it's been the dark night of the soul as far as public access goes. So please, thank you for supporting public access TV, and tell your friends. Once people will start turning on, they don't even know it's there. It's channel 26 and 29 and 76 are the cable access show. Yeah, getting old is a privilege denied to many, but you never know it by watching TV ads. To them, it's a youth-oriented society. Old people are too wise to buy garbage. Remember, teach your kids to tell a lie. Show them Donald Trump and say, do you want to grow up to be this man? He's, if everything we know now, money he's such a pathetic soul. I actually, I'm honest Injun. I wouldn't lie to you. Let me pick a card. Oh, we've got 2 minutes left. Okay, what do my viewers need to know? Oh, emotional maturity. Death will pick you up, spin you around, and drop you down deeper in your own life. We're seeing a potential death, the start of the death of our precious democracy. And like rest her soul, Heather Heyer was murdered by a Nazi. She said, if you're not paying attention, you're simply not, if you're not outraged, you're simply not paying attention. So please, if you're watching public access TV, I love you. And if you're not, I will love you when you start watching. Now, everybody, I love you. It's not usually love as a blackmail thing, but I think here's the victory card. We're going to be victorious. No matter what happens, America, this fine country, is going to rally from this. And right now, please be grateful. It doesn't mean we condone what's happening by any means. It just we're grateful because this is the paradigm changes that's going to. History will be proud that we were we were on the right side of history. And do what we can to get involved with other like-minded people. Liberty, justice for all. I love you. Okay, come on in, Denise.